station of Fox Sports.
From the Hemisphere Tower to the Riverwalk, we go inside the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. It is Big League weekend, and last night the fans were treated to a walk-off victory as the Rangers beat the Royals 7-5. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the ballpark with Tom Grieve from Rangers TV. I'm Ryan Lefevre from Royals TV, and we began last night talking about pitching for both teams. Tom, we talked about a lock in the starting rotation last night in Derek Holland, and now today a guy who's on the outside trying to get in.
Yeah, you know, the Rangers don't have a lot of spots open right now, but one of the spots open is the fifth starter spot. A.J. Griffin is pitching today. He's one of 6 or 7 candidates who are all still in the running with a couple of weeks left in the season. The interesting thing about A.J., if you go back a few years, 2012, 2013, he was a terrific pitcher for Oakland. He was 21-11, a 3.60 ERA in about a year and a half. The last 2 years, he's only thrown 14 minor league innings. So he's coming back basically after having not pitched for a couple of years, but he's in the running and he feels good, and we'll see what happens. From Kansas City's point of view, an interesting guy starting today with quite a story on him.
Yeah, a name, and it might remind some fans of a very successful pitcher with the Yankees, Chien-Ming Wang. You said A.J. Griffin going back a few years. For Chien-Ming Wang, you got to go back longer than that. It was about 8 or 9 years that he had back-to-back 19-win seasons with the New York Yankees. His pitching coach at that time was Dave Island, who's now the pitching coach of the Royals. He made some mechanical adjustments during the offseason. He's got his velocity back, he's got his sinker back, and he's gone from a guy that was way on the outside. He's put himself very much on the Royals' radar as they're trying to fill out some spots, if not in the starting rotation, in the bullpen. So Griffin and Wang, another big crowd at the Alamo Dome. And the Royals and the Rangers, the first pitch, the starting lineups, that's all coming up next. Royals and the Rangers inside the Alamo Dome. Royals and Rangers fans, both teams are represented well, and a bigger crowd today than we had last night. Here's the Royals starting lineup. Christian Colon will be at second base. Travis Snider's trying to make the team as a non-roster player. Then 3 regulars, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer, Salvador Perez. 37-year-old Clint Barmas will be at shortstop, Whit Merrifield at third, Jose Martinez in left, and Ryan O'Hearn will be the designated hitter. All to face right-hander A.J. Griffin.
A.J. Griffin, Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago, shoulder injury last year. He's only thrown 14 minor league innings. in the last couple of seasons. Prior to that, he was a very good starting pitcher for the Oakland A's. 2013, as a matter of fact, he threw over 200 innings and was 14-10. He's trying to make a comeback. He's thrown the ball well in spring training. He's feeling good. More of a finesse pitcher, not a hard thrower, but he's still in the mix for that 5th starter spot for the Rangers.
And he's across with a strike to Christian Colon, who had a big night for the Royals last night with 3 hits and a run scored. And that's well hit to center field. DeShields goes back. There's a lot of room in the outfield here, and several steps in front of the 415 mark. Makes the play to help out Griffin.
Batting second, the right fielder, number 15.
It was a very good defensive game for both teams last night. The Rangers in the outfield today have Rua, DeShields, and Mazzara. On the infield, Robinson, Alberto, Siriaco, Ruggiano, and the veteran Bobby Wilson will call the game for Griffin. And now Travis Snyder, and he's after the first pitch. Remember when Travis Snyder and Adam Lind seemed to be linked together for years coming up in the Blue Jays organization?
Yeah, there was a lot of times where you'd watch Travis Snyder play in the big leagues and say to yourself, boy, this good looking young player, he's got a nice career ahead of him. It hasn't quite happened for him yet, but he's still plugging away trying to make it happen.
One ball and 2 strikes. He has been around for a long time, so the league knows all about Travis Snyder, and the Rangers will stack the right side. 2 things have come up in this very first inning which just kind of show you how much the game has changed. Number one, we don't make as big a deal as we used to about Tommy John surgery because there's about 10 guys every year coming back from Tommy John surgery.
That's for sure.
And we see these defensive shifts now, and it's not as startling as they used to be.
Nope.
Batting third, the center fielder, number 6.
The most famous shift was the Boudreaux shift for Ted Williams. Now it's a shift for everybody. That's pretty good at bat right there for A.J. Griffin. Threw Travis Snyder 5 straight fastballs. Got ahead in the count. Threw a couple just off the plate. Then finished him off with a pitch up and away. Good start to the game. Got away with a little bit of a hanger to Colon. Right guy to hit it, the leadoff hitter, rather than some guy in the middle of the lineup. And then came back with good at bat right there against Travis Snyder.
Lorenzo Cain had a 2-hit game last night and drove in a run. He went too far. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fifth in the American League in hitting and 3rd in the voting for the American League most valuable player, Lorenzo Cain. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Slow breaking ball.
Tough to hit that the first time you see it.
Well, a good start for Griffin with a couple of strikeouts, and he gets the Royals in order in the first inning. first inning for A.J. Griffin as the Royals go down in order. And now here's Jeff Bannister's lineup up against Chien-Ming Wang this afternoon.
Yeah, for the Rangers, it'll be center fielder Delino DeShields leading off. Hanser Alberto gets the start at shortstop. Nomar Mazara again will bat third. Ryan Rua moves up to the cleanup spot. He'll play left field today. Played first base last night. Justin Ruggiano trying to learn first base will get the start there. Robinson Chirinos is the DH. Drew Robinson at third base. Bobby Wilson is the catcher, and batting ninth, the second baseman Pedro Siriaco.
Good movement on that pitch from Chien-Ming Wang to Delino DeShields. The last time Wang pitched in the big leagues was 2013 when he appeared in just 6 games for the Blue Jays. Very slow, deliberate windup. 6'4", 225 pounds. And now 36 years old, Chien-Ming Wang.
Well, Ryan, it's been a long time since I remember watching Wang throw. But as soon as he threw that first pitch, it brings back the memories of the kind of pitcher he used to be. He was never a strikeout pitcher, but he had as good a movement on his sinker as pretty much any sinker baller when he won 19 games. In fact, first year he won 19 games, he only struck out 76 batters in 218 innings. But he still pitched a lot of dominating games because of the movement on that hard sinker that he throws. It looks like he's recaptured it so far. When you see 52 walks and 76 strikeouts for the season, you would not expect to see a 19-6 record.
And what I remember about him with the Yankees is when he really had that sinker working, that's about all he would throw all day.
Yeah, and really all he needed.
At the knees, maybe slightly below the knees. And DeShields is down, 1 away.
Batting second, the shortstop, number 2, Hanser Alberto.
And now look at the Royals defensively with Martinez, Kane, and Snyder in the outfield. Merrifield, Barmes, Colon, and Hosmer around the horn. Salvador Perez catches Chien-Ming Wang. And Hanser Alberto steps in. What kind of challenges does it present for a hitter when you're facing a guy who is slow and deliberate when he's pitching out of the windup?
I think as a hitter, what you have to do is don't pay any attention to anything until he starts his move toward the plate. In other words, when he brings his hands over his head, don't pay any attention to it. When he stops for a second or two, don't pay any attention to it. And then pretend he's starting everything when he makes his move toward the plate. And that, I think, allows you a little, like, don't pay any attention until right now, and then pick it up, and I think you avoid the distraction of the hesitation that he has.
It's almost treat him as though he's pitching out of the stretch, right to the very end.
Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, there are some guys, and we've seen a lot of Japanese pitchers. Chien-Ming Wang is from Taiwan, but we've seen a lot of Japanese pitchers who are slow and deliberate. But I mean, he takes it to another level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chasing a pitch that was down. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
And the sinker ball pitcher has the luxury, as you mentioned, to be able to throw sinker after sinker. As a hitter, you can be pretty sure that you're going to see a sinker, but with the solid velocity and that kind of movement and the location keeping the ball down, there's still a limit to what you can do with it, even if you know it's coming. Boy, there's a left-handed slider.
Back-to-back strikeouts.
Batting third, the right fielder, number 30.
Well, go down and in. You can't lay off it because halfway to the plate, it looks like it's in the strike zone. You've got 2 strikes. And then you start your swing, and as you go through the strike zone, you realize, whoa, that ball just disappeared on me. The Rangers saw Dylan G yesterday, pitched 5 solid innings. He had a good sinker. off-speed pitches. Really nice command. Didn't walk a batter. Wong looks solid today. How do these guys, Ryan, figure in Kansas City's plans? Is it still up in the air as you're coming down towards spring training?
I think because of all of his injuries, Wong was very much a fringe guy, hoping that he could stay healthy, maybe go to AAA. Look at the movement on that pitch. Wow. Hoping that maybe he could go to AAA, continue to build up some arm strength, try and get back closer to where he was in those best years with the Yankees. But he has forced himself into this discussion, not only with the way he's pitched, but the way his velocity has come back. The Royals were expecting 89, 90 miles an hour, and if you have good movement, you can get by with that. But he's back to where he was with his best years with the Yankees, where he's 93, 94, 95 with that sinker.
Well, if you've got that kind of velocity with that kind of movement and you're keeping the ball down, you're a major league pitcher, that's for sure. A little breaking ball, mixes in occasionally. Now, the other thing we talked about yesterday was Kansas City's good fortune with some of the players like this that they signed and the success that they had for them last year. It looks like they might have another one right here in Wong. Still a lot of baseball to be played, long way to go. Still has to hold up. But based on what you've said about his spring and what the Rangers have seen through 10 or 15 pitches so far in this game, he looks pretty good.
Mazzara was 0 for 3 last night. So if you have to wait till the last moment facing a guy like Wong, hitters hate to wait at all in the box. What do you look at to keep yourself from getting target fixation?
I'd look in that general direction, but I wouldn't get ready to hit as he goes in to that pause. I might take another practice swing. I'd be looking in that direction, but I really wouldn't be doing anything to get ready to hit until right now when he started.
Over the outside, he's got movement, he's got location, and he strikes out the side. Chien-Ming Wang gets to Shields, Alberto, and Mazzara. Big Chien-Ming Wang fan there, thrilled with his first inning. Double celebration. And it was a good inning for A.J. Griffin, who faced 3 and struck out 2 in his half of the first inning, and he comes right at Eric Hosmer, who fouls it into the crowd off to the left field side. And Hosmer went 1 for 3 with an RBI last night after driving in 93, a career high for the Royals last year. Slider inside. Hosmer, Salvador Perez, and Clint Barmas coming up in the second inning. 2-1. In addition to driving in 93, many of those were clutch RBIs. Siriaco, a former teammate of Hosmer's, out in shallow right field, throws him out, and there's one down.
Batting fifth, the catcher, number 13, Salvador Perez.
Both pitchers early in the game are showing reasons why they had been successful in the past. They each have something to prove now as far as being healthy after long layoffs, basically, from the big leagues. But early in the game, they're both throwing the ball well. A little cut fastball for A.J. Griffin to go along with sneaky fastball, and a nice curveball to strike out Lorenzo Cain. A good start for both guys today.
Got to hit it a long way to left field, and it's going to be caught by Rua in left.
Well, that was an effective fastball by A.J. Perez is obviously a free swinger. And he got his swing and a pitch a little bit on the inside part of the plate, maybe a little bit off the plate, jammed him just enough to keep that ball from going anywhere to left field.
And that'll bring up Clint Barmes, 37-year-old shortstop. Spent most of his career with the Colorado Rockies, and he's also spent some time with the Pirates, the Astros, and 98 games last year with the Padres. A slow curveball. Similar pitch struck out Lorenzo Cain to end the top of the first inning, and he's ahead of Barmes 0-2. One hop down to third. Robinson across the diamond, and that's that. 6 up, 6 down for the Royals in their first 2 innings against A.J. Griffin. Nine batters have come to the plate. All have been set down by A.J. Griffin and Chin-Ming Wong. And now the Rangers will go back to work with Ryan Rua, Justin Ruggiano, and Robinson Chirinos against Wong, who struck out the side. 2 looking, 1 swinging. Chin-Ming Wong this past offseason was persuaded by his agent to go to a pitching coach and make some changes, mechanical changes, nothing severe, but the thought was to use his legs, take a little strain off of his arm. And of course, we've heard so much about Nolan Ryan and how strong his legs were. You know, we say about a pitcher, he's got a really good arm. You know, his arm's strong, which is true, but the true power guys really get a lot of drive from their legs. So more use of his legs has something to do with his added velocity.
Well, based on where he's been the last few years, all the minor league parks, obviously the lack of major league success, and what he looks like right now, that pitching coach may be seeing a few more pitchers in the offseason next year. And again, there's a long way to go. A lot of things still have to happen for him to resume where he left off way back when as a 19-game winner. But so far, so good in this ballgame.
One gets past Eric Hosmer, and Ryan Rua will end up at second base with nobody out. So Whit Merrifield, and the Royals are looking at him all over the field as a possible super utility player. And that was a long throw from deep at third, and Hosmer digs almost all of them out, but this is the rare occasion he doesn't.
Yeah, that one bounced way out in front of Hosmer, and it looked like it really didn't take much of a bounce. It just kind of stayed down on the ground. He lifted his glove to catch that hop the way he would normally expect it, but where it hit on the lip of the turf made the ball stay down, went underneath his glove.
And now Justin Ruggiano. And he gets that one past Hosmer and into right field. A throw back to first to try and get Ruggiano as he rounded the bag. So a throwing error and then a base hit on the very next pitch. And the Rangers take a 1-0 lead.
Well, Ruggiano is a veteran hitter, and he was a man on second and no outs. He's trying to hit the ball to the right side. You want to move the runner along, and what you're hoping is you'll hit the ball on the ground to move the runner and have it go into the outfield, move them all the way around to score, which is what Ruggiano was able to do.
Here's Robinson Chirinos, and Jeff Bannister will use him as the designated hitter. Good fastball over the outside. Tom, are you familiar with at all with Ron Wolforth and the Texas Baseball Ranch?
No.
I had never heard of it before either. For Royals fans, Rustin Dodd of the Kansas City Star did a very nice piece talking about exactly what Chien-Ming Wang did this past offseason. Ruggiano runs. Perez throws from a knee, and Ruggiano swipes second base.
Pretty strong throw to throw it from your knees without even standing up. Must have been a very good jump for Ruggiano. He had to get rid of that as quickly as he could. A little bit on the shortstop side, which eliminated any chance of getting Ruggiano, who did have a nice jump.
To right field and gone. So the Rangers went down 1-2-3, all with strikeouts in the first inning. And now in the second, an error, a single, and a home run. And suddenly they have a 3-0 lead.
One home run, similar to a couple of the home runs hit last night. Solidly hit balls in the air that probably took advantage of the short dimensions in right field. See where Wong's pitch was. Like a hanging curveball. Got it up and out over the plate. And Robinson just hit it solidly to right field. Hit a little bit on a line. There's probably some ballparks in the league where that ball would have carried out. Certain nights in the summer. Rangers ballpark might have been one of them. I don't know about Kansas City.
One 1-0 on Drew Robinson. So I'm like you. I had not heard of Ron Wolforth and the Texas Baseball Ranch, but it sounds like he's somewhat similar to Tom House, a name you're familiar with, where there's maybe some. Tom House, I remember, was big on throwing footballs, right, for building up some arm strength, and that's off the end of the bat and foul.
Yeah, Tom recognized that a lot of pitchers were high school quarterbacks, and he wanted to make the workouts enjoyable and fun. Sometimes it would get a little tedious over 162 games, so it was kind of a conditioning thing. And at the time, he was obviously the only pitching coach doing that. He was ridiculed for bringing the football onto a baseball field. Baseball, kind of sport that doesn't embrace change all that well. And so he endured that ridicule, and then 5 or 6, 7 years later, you go to Yankee Stadium and you see Roger Clemens and Andy Pettitte tossing the football out in right field, and all of a sudden that became the in vogue thing to do. But way back when Tom started, it didn't have quite the same credibility.
One down to Bobby Wilson. Deep to left field. It has to be very deep to left field here. And Martinez makes the play. It's 350 up the left field line. So you got to hit it almost 80 feet farther to left than you would have to right, where it's just 272. If in fact it is 272. Well, 2 down to Pedro Siriaco, who spent a couple of years with the Royals. To Siriaco.
Obviously, one of the keys for a team facing a pitcher like Long is you say to yourself, I want to make him get the ball up. And it's down around the knees. Try not to swing at it because it's going to end up lower than that. Easy to say from our vantage point, a little more difficult to do when you're down in the batter's box trying to contend with it.
Trying to get that breaking ball down here to Siriaco. No, it stayed up. The breaking ball hurt him against Chirinos. Chirinos taking that breaking ball into the seats in right field, and now Siriaco got a breaking ball and hits it into right center. And after going down quickly, all on strikeouts in the first inning, the Rangers have 3 runs, 3 hits in the second inning.
You mentioned, Ryan, how often he threw his sinker, and at times that's all he did throw. So far in this game, that's been obviously his best pitch. Complementary pitches haven't had quite the same location as a sinker.
Delino DeShields was one of those strikeout victims. Wasn't thrilled with the call when he was called out on strikes in the first inning, and thought that pitch was down and away. Long had the advantage in the first inning of not only keeping the ball down, but was getting calls down in the strike zone. Snap throw to first. Got him. Salvador Perez from a knee. Throws a bullet down to Eric Hosmer, and Siriaco is picked off to end the second inning. But it was the Rangers catcher making the noise in the top of the second with a 2-run home run in a 3-run Texas second inning. 3-0 Rangers, and now A.J. Griffin in his third inning of work after setting down the first 6 Royals. And pitches to Whit Merrifield, who had a very good game last night, both offensively and defensively. He homered to put the Royals in front briefly in the top of the 9th, and had a very good defensive game moving around the field. This afternoon he committed a throwing error and a ground ball from Ryan Rua to begin the top of the 2nd inning, and that was the beginning of a 3-run 2nd inning. Little bit upstairs, 3 balls and no strikes. I thought that was a little high. Instead, 3-1. Arthur Joseph Griffin. Came right at him with a 3-1 fastball, and now a full count.
There have been several fastballs that the hitters have swung and missed at from AJ. Again, a guy whose fastball is usually maybe 88 to 91, not overpowering as far as the radar gun goes. But he's had some pretty good success with it so far, with several swings and misses at it. A little bit late on that fastball.
Challenge him again. One hop out to Siriaco. Got kind of caught in between, but he throws out Merrifield, and now Griffin's retired the first 7.
Batting 8th, the left fielder, number 74, Jose Martinez.
Take a look at the pickoff play to end the last inning. Salvador Perez to Eric Hosmer. Watch how quickly he gets rid of that ball. He's got a great arm. Big guy. It's a signature play from Pudge Rodriguez back in the day.
You know, watching that play again, give Hosmer a little bit of credit with a left-hand thrower. He probably, if that ball is on the bag or the inside, he can just put the tag down, but he had to reach up and turn around and get that.
Find the hand to tag him, yeah.
1-1 on Martinez. If you don't see it happen once a game, Perez trying to connect with Eric Hosmer at some point, you're going to see it at least every other game.
Well, when you've got that kind of an arm, you feel like showing it off. You have fun throwing to the bases. Not much risk involved. Just a chance to get an out on the bases, help your pitcher out of an inning.
Nice diving play by Alberto, and some help at the stretch on Ruggiano.
They talked about Alberto in yesterday's ball game. He's a true shortstop who also plays other infield positions. But a couple of years ago, he was voted the best defensive player in the minor leagues, and give you a pretty good indication why. Terrific defensive player. He's competing for a utility role on the ball club. With Pedro Siriaco, they both played very well in the spring. If he doesn't make the team in that role, he'll be a very valuable everyday player at AAA.
This is Ryan O'Hearn, who was last year's Royals minor league player of the year. He had 19 home runs at Class A. He had another 8 home runs in Double-A, so he finished with 27 home runs and drove in 77. He is from Frisco. Royals drafted him out of Sam Houston State just 2 years ago. Over the outside, 2-2.
Griffin's doing a really good job of locating his fastball. The left-hand hitters, he's kept the ball either outside or on the outside corner. Mixed in a couple of good curveballs. He's got an excellent changeup to go along with it. There's a slow curveball. Second time he's got a strikeout with that pitch.
9 up, 9 down. Well, she's the winner, even though on the right there's all those French fries in the cup. There's a young lady on the left who actually got one in as the clock was ticking. That's an easier promotion indoors than it would be outdoors.
Very tough to play the wind with those things, with those French fries. My favorite one used to be, I don't think they do it anymore. It's a little bit dangerous. The one where two fans go out near home plate with a bat. And they put their both hands at the top of the bat and their head on the top of the bat. And then they spin around about 10 times and then try to beat the other guy to first base. And they're so dizzy, they don't know what direction they're going in. It's hilarious to watch. It's actually kind of a cruel thing to do. But I guess they volunteered to do it. I'm sure they do that.
Usually
anymore.
The first 2 or 3 steps are pretty good, and then the dizziness kicks in, and DeShields was standing at the plate when Salvador Perez picked off Pedro Siriaco. Chien-Ming Wang struck him out in the bottom of the first. And that's a fair bunt. Whit Merrifield, who has a throwing error. That was last inning. Now comes up the very good play coming down from third to get DeShields one away.
Delano's generally doesn't catch an infield by surprise when he bunts. And you can see where Merrifield is playing. He was actually slightly in front of the bag, playing in, anticipating the possibility of a bunt. And so then when the bunt came down, he was right there ready for it. And Delano depends on getting the bunt down and then using his speed. That time the third baseman was ready for it.
Alberto was also a strikeout victim in the first inning. Chien-Ming Wang struck out the 3 batters he faced in the first, but then he faced 6 in the second, and the Rangers scored 3. Barmes charges in from short and throws it away. Alberto will head for second, so he really didn't lose stride. And now the Royals have throwing errors in the last 2 innings.
Slowly hit ball. Barmes gets to it. Wasn't able to get it on a high hop. He had to reach down and short hop it. Had time to make the play. Throw just sails into the runner. Hosmer had to get his glove out of the way and risk having his arm very vulnerable to the runner going by him. It would be at least an error, maybe a hit and an error, or probably a straight error.
That gets us to Nomar Mazara. He took a called third strike in the first inning. This turf seems similar to the one in Toronto in that it's slow.
Yeah, it is slow.
Right? I mean, we're all kind of accustomed to thinking if it's AstroTurf, it's got to be fast, that the ball's going to pick up speed, but not here.
Nope.
Longer turf, longer blades of turf, making the comparison to grass. And then to help slow things down, just a bunch of ground up tires and shoes. You'll see that kick up on the ground when a ball hits the turf. A challenge that infielders will have sometimes is if a ball is rolling, literally rolling on the ground but not bouncing, is that sometimes, and I don't know if this was the case for Barmas, you mentioned that he had to reach down for it, but sometimes they'll grab the ball and they'll get a handful of those little you know, ground up tires and shoes, which will affect the grip.
That could be a distraction. I can remember playing left field in Cleveland one time when Jim Merritt was pitching. Base hit came to left field. I fielded it out of bounds, and as I threw it into second base, I caught the side of the ball where he had the KY jelly. Luckily, there's no one on base, and it slipped out of my hand and went right over the second baseman's head. First baseman caught it, and it was no issue, but made me realize you never know what you're going to get when you field the ball.
Alberto will be held. Jose Martinez makes a long one-hop throw to home plate, and the Rangers have runners at first and third with one out. Mazzara is 1 for 2. So the moral of that story is the foreign substance on the baseball is good for a pitcher but not for an outfielder.
Not too good for the fielder, no. Don't see that quite as much as you did back then. Mazzara's had an excellent spring, one of the Rangers' highly touted young prospects. He has a knack for using the whole field, hitting the ball solidly to the whole field. He's only 20 years old. His power will get better and better. He has been hitting over 400 the whole spring, getting a lot of opportunity to play.
Ryan Rua, good slider away. Rua hit a ground ball to Merrifield in the second inning and reached on a throwing error and scored one of the 3 runs. Ruggiano got him to the plate, and then Chirinos hit a 2-run home run after Ruggiano's base hit. Back with the same pitch, this one out of the strike zone, 0-2. Back to Wong, who had a chance at an inning double play, but was going to take just one out. That was just one hop right back to him, and if he turns quickly and goes to second base, Tom, he might be out of the inning.
Yeah, I agree. That's one where I think the pitching coach will say to him, know what you're going to do before you ever have the chance to field the ball. It's first and third. Wong wanted to make sure the run didn't score, but I think you're right, Ryan. If he had immediately turned and thrown a strike to second, he would have been out of the inning.
So the inning extends to Ruggiano. And Wong going with that slider quite a bit in this inning. Ruggiano with Rua at second base and nobody out, just tried to simply hit a ground ball to the right side to advance the runner. He did better than that. He hit a base hit to the right side, and then he scored on the Chirinos home run. Fastball makes it 0-2. Out to second base, and Colon over to Hosmer, 2, and the inning. A hit, an error, 2 left, and at the end of 3, the Rangers lead 3-0. San Antonio's famous river walk. I can tell you personally, this is my first trip to San Antonio, and I can see why so many enjoy visiting here. Great location downtown, the Alamo Riverwalk, Alamo Dome, not far away. It's actually kind of a cool morning. Temperatures in the 50s, only getting up into the mid-60s today after a lot of rain, but no worry about that inside. Both teams will head back to Surprise after the game today. And that'll be the end of the mid-60s. A.J. Griffin has set down the first 9 Royals hitters. And really only a couple of balls have been hit hard. Christian Colon, one of them, when he lined to center, now he drops down a bunt. And Wilson, who had very little room for air, needed to grab and throw very quickly, but the ball did not stick in his hand.
The ball had a lot of spin on it, so it didn't roll toward third base. It kind of stayed right there, stayed down on the ground. One of those balls that if Bobby's able to come up with it, he had a shot at first base. The ball almost spin and come back.
So there goes the perfect game down the drain. Griffin has struck out 3. He got Snyder swinging in the first inning. And now Snyder takes a fastball strike, kind of shaking his head after letting that one pass. 1-1.
I think watching AJ, we saw him a little bit earlier in the spring. Probably the best velocity that he's had with his fastball, and certainly the best location, best command of his fastball. Able to move it in and out. There's that excellent changeup that he's got. Looks just like his fastball. He's had a couple of strikeouts today with slow, sharp breaking curveballs that he's kept down in a good pitcher's location. And it looks like a cut fastball he mixes in with those other 3 pitches. Been a good performance for him so far in this game. Boy, another fastball right on the outside corner.
And I mean, he hit the bullseye.
He did.
Wilson put the sign down for a fastball away, and I mean, couldn't put it in a better spot.
Well, you were talking about Wong and Dave Island's feeling that he looks a lot like he did when he was a 19-game winner. And this is pretty much exactly what A.J. Griffin looked like when he won 21 games over a year and a half. 14-game winner, over 200 innings pitched in 2013 or 13, I think it was. It was a very impressive outing. In contention for the 5th starter spot for the Rangers. And I think he's enhanced his opportunity the way he's throwing the ball so far today. See how the fourth inning finishes, but this looked terrific. There's like cut fastball right in the outside corner. Pretty much pinpoint command, and all 4 of his pitches have been working pretty much exactly how he hoped they would.
Fouled away by Keane. He went down looking in the first inning. I brought this up to you in the first. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago when if a pitcher was coming off a Tommy John surgery, that was a big concern. You know, well, this guy had Tommy John surgery, and now, I mean, you know, those guys are walking all over the place coming off a Tommy John surgery, and sometimes coming back a little better than they were before they had the surgery. I mean, now, that used to be the last resort, having the Tommy John surgery. Now they start looking at the elbow and they can see, well, this is not maybe affecting him that much, but it's trending towards Tommy John surgery, so let's just get it done.
Yeah, our team physician Keith Meister says he has younger pitchers, big league pitchers, come in and ask for Tommy John surgery because they think it's going to make him a better pitcher. There's that breaking ball again for strike 3. Take a look at it. Right at the top of the strike zone. Second time Kane's looked at that pitch for strike 3. Yeah, and in AJ's case, the Tommy John, he's 2 years removed from Tommy John. Last year he was coming back from Tommy John, and it was a different type of an injury that caused him to miss most of the season. So as far as the Tommy John goes, he's pretty much in the sweet spot of the rehab from that in his second year back from that.
Colon thought he had Griffin timed perfectly, and Ruggiano throws the ball into left field. Colon tried a walking or even a hopping lead, but Griffin did not come to the plate, and Colon still ends up at third base.
And Justin learning how to play first base. He's worked a lot there. I believe this is his first opportunity to play first base in a game. It's a much tougher play for a right-hand thrower than a left-hand thrower. That was a little bit low.
Hosmer is late and fouls it away.
That's one of the impressive things about AJ today is his fastball. Again, he's had several swings and misses at it, and then good hitters like Hosmer have been a little bit late on it.
Hosmer grounded out to second base first time, and now he drills it into deep left field. He has outstanding opposite field power, and Hosmer brings Christian Colon home with him. It's a 2-run home run, and now a 1-run game.
Well, you got to see the same pitch again. First pitch fastball, he's a little bit late. Second pitch fastball, very similar location, and he went the other way and drove it out of the ballpark. The pickoff would have had AJ back on the bench with basically facing 12 hitters in 4 innings. Look at the first pitch. Fastball up and away. Hosmer's a little bit late on it. In fact, extremely late. Second pitch, pretty much the exact same pitch. And that time Hosmer went the other way with it, got it up in the air, and showed his power.
And now Salvador Perez cranks it to left field, just foul. He has tremendous opposite field power. Using a hitting term here, Tom, but it's something that Hosmer does very well. He stays through the ball about as long as anyone in the Royals lineup.
He's definitely a good hitter. And in left field, as we've said several times, much different than right field. If you hit one out of left field here, that's a home run almost anywhere.
There's that slow curve. Salvador Perez asking if that pitch was inside. Out on a fly ball to left field in the second inning. Came back with that pitch. Zach Greinke pitched with the Royals, and he began his big league career with the Royals, and he had a real slow curveball, even slower than Griffin's, but he would never throw it back to back. except on one occasion he thought it was a good idea one game to throw back-to-back slow curveballs to Jim Thome in Philadelphia. And the second one, I think, ricocheted off the Liberty Bell.
So you have to be careful with those to those kind of hitters.
That's hit well into straightaway center field. And gone. Salvador Perez has homered in consecutive games here at the Alamo Dome. So now the air becomes even more painful. Hosmer and Perez with back-to-back home runs to tie the game at 3.
And Perez shows the kind of power that he has. That pitch looked like a cut fastball out over the plate. And Perez just kind of reaches for it, strokes it to center field. It was about 415 feet. So what could have been a spectacular performance if the pickoff play was successful, 12 batters in 4 innings, and only one hit, the bunt single, turns into a 3-run outing, all unearned, but a couple of home runs. Still, overall, I think AJ has to feel very good about the way he threw the ball. And if I were the Rangers, I'd be pretty impressed with his performance today, in spite of the last 2 home runs.
And now Alex Claudio will take over. Alex Claudio, who would typically be coming on with some lefties coming up, will get Clint Barmas with 2 down, nobody on. The Royals have tied the game with home runs from Hosmer and Salvador Perez. Claudio appeared in 18 games for the Rangers last year. Well, you're right about AJ Griffin's line. Write it down now. 3 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, 2 home runs. That really doesn't tell the whole story about how good he looked in the first 3 innings, or really the first 3 2/3 innings. And then 2 home runs.
You're right. No walks, 5 strikeouts in 3 2/3, and if it was a bunt single and a very tough play, but if Bobby Wilson somehow is able to come up with that bunt and make the play at first base, and then the inning continues the way it did, he ends up facing 12 batters, getting all 12 of them out and striking out 5 of them. So it was a solid outing. 2 home runs marred it a little bit, but overall he threw the ball really well today.
Two and 2 on Barmas. He rolled out to Robinson at third, his first time up. Did he go? No swing. Adrian Johnson is the first base umpire. Going the other way, and Mazzara uses that long wingspan to reach up and take care of Barmes. Griffin struck out 2 more in the 4th inning, but with a man on and 2 down, Hosmer homers to left. Salvador Perez follows with a home run to center field, and we head to the bottom of the 4th inning in a 3-3 tie. Gentleman has a shirt that said hearing as veterans in attendance today are being honored by applause, and now waving to the video board. It's been a nice touch at most big league ballparks that at some point during the game, in between innings, some sort of honoring of a hometown military hero. Before the game even started today, we had about a dozen future members of the Air Force that were sworn in, and that stopped everything. The players were warming up down the outfield lines, but they stopped to watch that. Big round of applause as those 12 will be joining the United States Air Force. Danny Duffy comes on to pitch for the Royals. And a fastball is fouled away by Robinson Chirinos. "30 games last year for Duffy, most of which as a starter. He did pitch some out of the bullpen. Hard breaking ball for a strike, and it's 0-2. Three pitches, and down goes Chirinos.
Third baseman, Drew Robinson.
Two solid fastballs from Danny Duffy. No radar gun speeds today, but judging by the look of that fastball and the swing, it's probably somewhere in the mid-90s, you would think. Isn't that pretty much where he throws? And especially out of the bullpen, when he's not thinking about 5, 6, or 7 innings, when he really lets it go. 94, 95, 96. That's what it looks like. And now gets a left-hand batter in Drew Robinson. Good location. No balls, 2 strikes. Just outside, but right where he wanted that pitch. Duffy, when he is right, when he is hitting his spots, or with his stuff, he is at least close to hitting his spots. He's as big a handful as any Royals pitcher. 2-2. He is pitching, even though he is still in the so-called rotation mix. It's interesting that he is pitching exclusively out of the stretch.
And he gets Robinson looking. Back-to-back strikeouts for Duffy to begin the bottom of the fourth.
The catcher, Bobby Wilson.
A couple of quick fastballs for strikes. A couple of breaking balls out of the strike zone. Mid-90s fastball right on the outside corner. Tough pitches to handle right there for a young left-hand hitter who's never seen him before. Or probably he's never seen him before.
Did he go? No swing. Don't want to read too much into Duffy pitching exclusively out of the stretch here, and yet it seems, and Yordano Ventura, Royals pitcher, is one, or pitchers are, some are really trying to minimize how much movement they have, and even when they're pitching so-called out of the windup, that it's a very abbreviated windup. Yu Darvish pitches exclusively out of the stretch, doesn't he?
Yep, he does. Yeah, in the old days, you used to see those windups where the guy's right arm would swing back and forth. Most pitchers went way over their head. And now, even if they're not pitching from the stretch, you're right, it's kind of a no windup type delivery. Simplify the delivery, not as many moving parts. Ross Ohlendorf, who's in camp with Kansas City, has an old-fashioned windup. Used to love watching him come in last year with that over-the-head windup.
Yeah, you almost feel like when he pitches, you should be watching him in black and white.
Yeah. If I remember right, he keeps the ball in his glove, and his hand goes behind him without the ball, and as he comes back up, his hand goes in the glove and grabs the ball.
Right at him with a fastball. Shallow right. Snyder comes on to make the play. So Duffy comes out of the bullpen and faces only 3 Rangers hitters. We've played 4 and we're tied at 3. Cesar Ramos is the new Rangers pitcher in relief of Alex Claudio, who finished off the 4th inning for A.J. Griffin. Ramos spent last year with the Angels and appeared in 65 games. Originally out of the Rays organization. Also San Diego.
Yeah, Caesar's one of those guys that still has an opportunity in the rotation. A lot of guys are getting an opportunity to be stretched out, but he's probably one of the guys competing for that kind of a role who would also be considered as a bullpen pitcher, being a lefty out of the bullpen and a guy who a couple of years ago had 7 starts, who could give you multiple innings out of the bullpen. The Rangers have a number, 5 or 6 shorter guys with great arms, late inning guys, some of whom will end up being stretched out to be able to pitch a couple of innings. But the last guy in the bullpen is going to be a guy that has to be able to be serving as a long man occasionally, give you 60 pitches, 3, 4, maybe even 5 innings. And Ramos, I think, would be considered for that role if he pitched well enough.
One ball, 2 strikes. Merrifield rolled out to second base in the 3rd inning against Griffin. Well, the Royals are seeing some slow curveballs today. They saw some from A.J. Griffin, and a big looping curveball from Ramos gets Merrifield.
Yeah, especially tough for a young hitter to hit that type of a pitch. Way out in front of it. Sharp break to it, too. Well, Ramos, over the last couple of years, has pitched 130 innings or so. Appeared in a lot of ball games. ERA probably in the low to mid 3s. Yet is in camp as a non-roster guy. He's had a pretty good performance the last couple of years to be in camp as a left-hand pitcher and a non-roster performer. So he's getting a good look and an opportunity to be a part of the staff.
Oh, and 2 on Jose Martinez. Out on maybe the best defensive play of the game in the 3rd when he lost a base hit on a diving play by the shortstop Alberto. Slow curveball makes it 1-2. Well, if Ramos happened to be the umpire, there would be 2 down. He was walking off the mound expecting Bobby Wilson to throw it around the horn, but pitch was just a little bit inside. Crack bat, and Robinson gets Martinez 2 down. Nothing against Drew Robinson, but if you want to play him at 3rd base when the Royals and the Rangers play this year, the Royals would be just fine with that, with what Adrian Beltre has done to the Royals over the years.
Yeah, he's had some pretty good games against a lot of teams over his career. So that's probably not going to be a scenario during the season.
I'm going to say last year, I'll look it up, but I think last year at one point, and I think it was the 2nd series between the Royals and the Rangers, but Adrian Beltre was hitless, and it put an end to a 23-game hitting streak against the Royals. And it wasn't just a single here and a single there. It seemed to be doubles, home runs, 2-run doubles.
Well, anybody that faced the Rangers in the last 2 months of the season had a very difficult time getting Adrian out. I think he drove in at least a run per game over his last 50 or 60 games. He was right there with Chu, 2 of the hottest hitters in the league for an extended period of time the last 2 months of the year. Had some injury problems earlier in the season, but once he got back to full health, he got on a roll and was one of the guys carrying the offense. Two and two on Ryan O'Hearn.
Ramos turns, throws a strike over to Ruggiano, and Cesar Ramos gets the Royals in order in the top of the fifth. Halfway home, we're still tied at 3. Well, last night we had a 5-home run game. The Rangers won on a walk-off home run. And now we've had 3 home runs in the first 4.5 innings. The Royals hit back-to-back home runs in the 4th. Rangers got a home run in the 2nd. Also had a combined 3 errors after a very well-defended game last night. Another inning for Danny Duffy. He replaced Chien-Ming Wang in the 4th inning and got the Rangers 3 up, 3 down with 2 strikeouts. And now it'll be Pedro Siriaco, Drew Stubbs, and Hanser Alberto. Good fastball over the outside, 0-1 to Siriaco, who singled to right center field in the 2nd inning and then was picked off by Salvador Perez. Deep center field. Kane has it bounce off the track, off the wall, and then over the wall.
Danny Duffy's showing a great fastball in the ball game today. He has a great fastball. Siriaco turned that one around. He's had 2 hits today. He is 14 for his last 20 in spring training. And based on his performance, his ability to play the outfield, number of different infield positions, there isn't a whole lot that he could do more than what he's done so far to win a spot on the team. A lot of things go into that. Hanser Alberto's a terrific defensive player at second base, shortstop, and third base. So there's a lot of competition between those two, if in fact it's between only those two for that role on the ball club. But Siriaco is doing everything in his power to win that spot.
Strike to Drew Stubbs. He took over in the 4th inning in center field for Delino DeShields. That was a role he had last year with the Rangers, Drew Stubbs, right? Would he come on late in games for DeShields at times?
Yeah, and at times he would come in. In fact, he came in quite frequently, and Jeff Bannister has said it wasn't necessarily only for a defensive replacement, but he wanted to make sure that Delino stayed healthy. He had a little bit of nagging injuries with his legs and didn't want to lose him in that leadoff role. So at appropriate times late in the game, Drew would come into the game to give Delino some time off his legs, but also because Drew's a terrific center fielder, so it worked out well for a couple of reasons.
Off of one glove and then past Barmes. So Stubbs will have an infield single. Siriaco goes to third.
Delino's making a lot of progress in the outfield. Delino was an infielder for most of his minor league career. Made the conversion to center field. And he's done a very good job getting better and better in the outfield. Stubbs, very experienced in center field, has excellent speed, terrific center fielder with a strong arm. So if he makes the team, that will be one of the key ingredients to his skill set that allows him to do that, his ability to run and play defense in center field.
That gets past Perez and will score Siriaco from third. Stubbs goes up to second base. And the Rangers lead 4-3.
Hard breaking ball down and in. Like Salvador lifted up a little bit. Ball snuck under his glove. Ball pitch.
Off of Alberto's ankle. He struck out in the first inning and then reached on an error by Barmes in the third. Play. One reason for the Royals' recent success has been so many homegrown players that came up together in the minor leagues, and that's just a hard thing to measure. Ned Yost will tell you how important it is. But these two guys, Duffy and Perez, they've been together since rookie ball. So nobody knows Danny Duffy like Salvador Perez does. And that's one of the advantages of players coming up together through the system. You know, they know idiosyncrasies, they know things about their teammates that don't show up in a box score.
Well, team chemistry is such an important factor. It's tough to pinpoint what it means as far as wins and losses go, but everybody agrees it's an important aspect of a winning team, and to have that many young players.
Well, Duffy wasn't fooled by Stubbs leaving early, but Stubbs got such a good break, and then the throw was not on line. And Stubbs ends up at third base. Still nobody out.
Yeah, that's what you call a pretty good jump right there. Let's see how many steps he has. He's gone. And Duffy's kind of throwing to a moving target. Whitfield's doing whatever he can to maintain his position in case the pitch goes to the plate. And so he's on the run trying to cover third and wasn't able to make that play.
And now Merrifield, he caught it on the fly with the infield in. One down.
But they have a group of young players all come up through the minor leagues, and with the talent they have, I'm assuming they had nice minor league teams, winning minor league teams. It's something you probably don't take for granted, that the chemistry on the Royals ball club over the last couple of years with those young players who know each other so well was an important aspect of their World Series teams.
Royals will keep the infield in for Mazzara, who takes low.
Good test for Mazzara, young 20-year-old. Got all the way to the higher levels of the Rangers minor league system last year, facing a big league pitcher with a mid-90s fastball and a hard breaking ball. Man on third base, less than 2 outs, infield in. Lays off a couple of tough sliders away.
And Perez is a little surprised. So is Duffy that pitch wasn't called a strike. And who knows what this means right here for this game or the next game or the one after that, but this gets back to that chemistry thing. Two guys that have been together since they're 18 years old, and you got a catcher sticking up for his buddy, and who knows what it means, but players will say that that's the kind of stuff that adds up over time. Give the pitcher a little lift. His catcher supporting him back there. And now going to go out there and probably remind him, hey, I'll do the dirty work. Just calm down. Get the ball over the plate. Three and one. Full count. Taken inside. So Mazzara laid off some tempting pitches early in that plate appearance. He'll take a walk and put runners at the corners for Ryan Rua.
Ryan came into the game on a nice streak. He was 15 for 23 his last 23 at bats coming into this game. 0 for 2 in this game. So both Rua and Siriaco, two guys with opportunities to win spots as role players for the ball club, both having exceptional springs.
Slide step, fouled away. He made the club out of spring training last year, didn't he?
Yeah, he was the Rangers' regular left fielder to start the season last year. Got off to a little bit of a slow start. A lot of high expectations by the team and by him. Then he had an injury, an ankle injury, and never really got back on track.
Breaking ball got away from him, and the Rangers are going to try a double steal, and they will execute a double steal.
Boy, that's about as perfectly as you can do it. A little bit of what looked like almost a delayed steal at first base. Perez looked the runner back at third, fired to second. And Stubbs, who has excellent speed and very nice base running instincts, got as far off the bag as he could without Perez able to throw down there. And as soon as he sees the throw to second, Stubbs is on the run. Second baseman had to come across the bag and throw on the run. Wasn't able to get it back home before Stubbs got there. A well-executed play.
Duffy gets the second out and a strikeout of Rua.
First baseman Justin Ruggiano.
Have the Rangers been a more aggressive team on the bases from Ron Washington to Jeff Bannister?
I think under Wash they were very aggressive going first to third. Might have gotten away from that toward the latter part of the season a couple years ago. And I think last year under Jeff Bannister they got back to that kind of aggressive base running. And they've been a team that stresses going first to third, scoring from second on a base hit. And so that's their goal, to be aggressive on the bases and take the extra base.
Ruggiano has driven in a run and scored a run, and he has stolen a base. He has Mazzara at second base with 2 down. Rangers have scored 2 in the inning to regain the lead. I thought I read something in spring training last year where there was some sort of a incentive program for guys that would take an extra 90 feet on balls in the dirt, really trying to get the guys to force the action.
Well, I know that it's something they stress, something they work on, and I think the Rangers have been very good on that. You'll see the good base runners on balls in the dirt get that big jump. As soon as the ball is in the dirt, off they go. I don't know many managers that say, I'm not interested in my base runners being aggressive on the bases. I think everybody wants that you hope you've got the kind of runners that can do that, but it's something that's stressed for sure.
Duffy finishes the inning with back-to-back strikeouts, but the Rangers add 2 runs, one on a double steal, and the Rangers have a 5-3 lead at the end of 5. Well, the Rangers had a 3-0 lead until the Royals tied it in the 4th inning. And now the Rangers are back out in front after scoring a run on a wild pitch and another run on a double steal in the bottom of the 5th inning. Cesar Ramos stays out for the top of the 6th. He'll get the top of the order. Christian Colon drives it to left field, and Rua is right there to make the play. Well, Colon is 1 for 3, but both of his outs have been lineouts to the outfield. So Ramos has set down the 4 batters he has faced. And now matches up with Travis Snider. Snider showing bunt. The Rangers, as we pointed out when he batted in the 1st inning, are in the exaggerated overshift, so any kind of a bunt toward third, and Snider could jog to first base. Now he pulls it into the shift. That's the shortstop Alberto coming over to the right side of the infield, and he gets Snider on a 6-3 scoring play, 2 down.
Center fielder Lorenzo Cain.
Well, Doug Brocail, the Ranger pitching coach, made a comment today in the newspaper. It's kind of what we were talking. You asked me the question yesterday, Ryan. Is this the time in spring where it's no consideration for getting ready for the season, but if you're trying to win a job, let's see it now? And he said all the pitchers competing for spots in the rotation, and there's a number of them, and maybe also in the bullpen. Now's the time to put up the numbers. Now's the time to go for it.
Cain goes the other way, and he hits it into the seats. That ball would have been way out of Kauffman Stadium.
Yeah, that little park out near the parking lot.
The Little K, yeah.
The Little League park.
Boy. You can't hit a ball harder and farther than the one that Lorenzo Cain hit right there.
That's pretty much the same ball that Jared Hoying hit yesterday.
Yeah.
Hoying's actually went in the upper deck here.
And before we could even make a joke about
that's all you need to know,
see
right
Lorenzo
there.
Cain smile. How long did it take for him to get a smile on his face here?
Big swing. Fly ball. And that's actually a home run. And I was just going to make the point that Cesar Ramos was throwing the ball very well. 5 up, 5 down, and unfortunately that'll go as a home run and an earned run, but normally probably the last out of the inning and 6 up and 6 down for Cesar Ramos. Competing for a job and throwing the ball well today. A.J. Griffin did the same thing today. Threw the ball very well, even though he gave up a couple of home runs.
0-2 on Hosmer, who hit a legit home run to left field in the 4th inning.
Yeah, there'd be times in this ballpark where a hitter might say, yeah, you say that's a cheap home run. I hit that ball well. I don't think Lorenzo Cain's going to say it. Lorenzo Cain's going to say that.
That curveball stayed up forever. And Hosmer hits it to center field for his second base hit of the game.
The catcher,
Well, for Jeff Bannister, it's a very good opportunity in this exhibition game to evaluate his pitchers because they have to pitch through 3 All-Stars, Cain, Hosmer, and Perez. A.J. faced them both a couple of times, and now Cesar Ramos will face all 3 of them. Well, that's a good test for a starter trying to make a ball club.
On the ground to Alberto. He'll go the short way to end the inning. So it is a 4-home-run game so far as Lorenzo Cain goes to the opposite field. And it's now 5-4 Rangers to the bottom of the 6th. Crockett was the big winner today in the mascot race, making up for an embarrassing finish yesterday. Yesterday, it was Nolan Ryan with the burst of speed during the final stretch. But the Ryan Express didn't have it today. Davy Crockett.
Well, you know, I said Nolan should be the favorite. He's Big Tex, but Davy Crockett's a pretty big figure in his own right. So it's not that big an upset, actually.
This is Scott Alexander taking over for the Royals. Chien-Ming Wang went 3 innings. He gave up 3 runs. Danny Duffy went 2 innings. He allowed 2 runs. And now Alexander, who spent most of last year at AAA, he also made his big league debut. He will get Chirinos, Robinson, and Wilson. The Royals have hit 3 home runs. The Rangers have 1 home run, and that was Chirinos with a man on back in the 2nd inning. Tied him up. 1 ball, 1 strike. He went around. 1-2. Really trying to pitch Chirinos down and in. 2-2. Out over the plate. The Royals have been working hard with Alexander. It's not a coincidence that he's trying to get Chirinos in and down and in. A lot of left-hand pitchers will do that to a right-hand batter, but that's been a focus for him, pitching to his glove side. One of the last ingredients for him to become a solid major league pitcher. And he got it in on him again. Still 2-2. And now over the outside. So all those pitches inside set up that one. One down in the 6th inning.
Third baseman, Drew Robinson.
Curveball. Generally, that's a dead giveaway when the catcher catches it and then yanks it back toward the plate, that it might have been a little bit outside. That's what he was trying to do, though, drop it on the outside corner.
Strike to Drew Robinson. He is grounded to first, and he is struck out looking. Oh, and 2. Robinson hit 21 home runs for Frisco last year. That led the league. He drove in 64, and he didn't mean to do it. Still no balls and 2 strikes. And a strikeout. He also struck out 139 times last year. So a good beginning for Alexander as he strikes out the first 2. Now Royals pitchers have struck out 9 Rangers hitters in the first 5 2/3 innings. And here's catcher Bobby Wilson. You have been watching at the same shot that our viewers are from behind home plate right before the pitcher delivers for the last 2 games. And when it comes back on the screen here, does it remind you of a place where you have broadcasted before?
Yes, and I didn't think of it until you said it yesterday, but it brings back memories of the Metrodome to me. How about you?
That part right here reminds me of the Metrodome. I actually was thinking about the Kingdome. Of course, they were very similar, but this shot right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The outfield portion of it, we talk about the baggy, but I don't know why, but I keep seeing the Kingdome.
That looks like that little window looks like the spot. What was the PA announcer for the Twins?
Bob Casey.
Bob Casey looked like a little perch.
Kirby Puckett. Yeah,
it looks like the perch that Bob Casey used to have. Kirby Puckett.
Can you believe it's been 17 years since you broadcast a game inside the Kingdome?
No, I can't.
Wilson hits it hard, and he gets it through Barmes.
You know, actually, I can believe that, because every time we go to Seattle, one of the highlights of that trip is watching the Kingdome explode and be leveled to the ground. We show that at least once every trip. Yeah. In case people didn't know the Kingdome wasn't there anymore.
It's a favorite of your crew, huh? Just a reminder that the Kingdome is dead.
That shot. So actually, I've probably seen that. Let's see. Go there 3 times a year. Probably seen it 50 or 60 times.
Fouled away by Siriaco. I know that the travel for you and the Astros being in the so-called West Division can be a challenge, but you are the envy of, I'll just speak for the Royals television crew, that you get to go to Seattle 3 times a year.
That's one of the best parts about being in the West. You know, obviously for our fans, the games start a couple of hours later and it's a late night to watch the whole game, but for the traveling crew, you're right, getting a chance to go to Oakland and stay in San Francisco, to go to Seattle, to go to Anaheim, now to go to Houston. It's a nice trip for the Rangers, a short trip, great hotel right near the ballpark. Yeah, so the travel for the American League West, if you go to each one of those places 9 or 10 times, that's about 25% of your schedule where you're going to very nice places, great hotels, great cities. That is a nice feature. Pedro Siriaco not having a bad spring. He's now 15 for his last 21.
Wow. And he's been around for a while.
Yep.
He's kind of had a reputation of being more of a one-dimensional player, more of a glove guy than he is a bat guy. So if he can hit, knowing what he can do with the glove, and he can also come on as a pinch runner and help a team out in later innings, now you've got something.
Yeah, he's got some good versatility. He's also played some outfield. Seen him in spring training do a decent job out in the outfield. So we were talking about that yesterday, how important it is to a manager for his extra men to be something other than one-dimensional players. The more positions they can play, the more value they have.
Two 2-0 on Stubbs. Stubbs was on with an infield single in the 5th inning, and then he scored on a steal of home, not a straight steal of home, but on a double steal. Here's another guy, if he can get the bat going, already has the defensive and running skills. Had a couple of big years with Cincinnati. Outstanding athlete. Out in front, 2-2. Full count. Strikeout, and Alexander strikes out the side, so he gets around the pair of 2-out hits. And now we've played 6 in San Antonio. The Rangers have a 5-4 lead. you see things at the ballpark that you've never seen before. That's one of the great things about this game. Sometimes it has to do with the actual play on the field. Other times it's what happens in between innings. And this fella here, if you've seen the Yankee ground crew or the Devil Rays ground crew, they will dance to an upbeat song, the Yankee guys YMCA. This guy with a very emotional dancing routine to Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do with It. Just incredibly moving. Barmes takes inside. This is what put people over the edge right here. They were doing the best they could to hold on to their emotions and keep it together, but there was absolutely no holding back once he got the stick and the ribbon out.
That's a very talented man right there. We've seen him in a lot of different roles with the Rangers. He's also an incredible break dancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Rangers ground crew. That's not a guy for the San Antonio ground crew.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I will say this. If anything, it took some guts to do that.
That's very, very innovative,
right,
for sure.
Mm-hmm. Barmes has grounded to third and lined to right. This is the third inning for Cesar Ramos. And right to Siriaco, who's now at shortstop. So Siriaco has moved over from second base as the Rangers now begin to make some of their spring training moves. Doug Bernier is at second base. And Ronald Guzman is at first. Strike over the outside from Ramos. Whit Merrifield has grounded out to second base and struck out. Almost got him on the elbow. If you follow the College World Series, you might remember the name Whit Merrifield. He had a base hit of a lifetime in 2010 playing for the University of South Carolina. Not only a walk-off hit in the College World Series, but a walk-off hit to win the College World Series.
Wow, what a thrill.
Against UCLA. And that's before becoming a professional. How about that for a way to end your college career? And out into left center field. Stubbs is over to get it. Merrifield is 1 for 3.
Left fielder Ramon Fuentes.
Fastball inside part of the plate. Got the bat on it. Solid single to center field.
Raymond Fuentes is going to bat for Jose Martinez. Fuentes had a couple of plate appearances in last night's game. He reached with a walk and with an infield single. 1-1. Adam Quintana. And Adam Hart. And a little roll in the action now, and sounds like a high school gymnasium.
Let's go Rangers, let's go Royals.
Yeah, let's go Rangers on one side, let's go Royals on the other side.
A lot of Royal fans here for these couple of ball games.
Merrifield runs and Fuentes fouls it away. $27,500 attended last night's game, and looks like a significantly bigger crowd here today. Over 46,000 watched the two games last year. Fuente is down on strikes. Those two games were between the Rangers and the Dodgers. Two strikeouts for Ramos in his 3 innings. Will go to their bench. Ryan O'Hearn was the designated hitter in the starting lineup, and Ned Yost is going to send up Paulo Orlando, who played the outfield last night. Started in right, finished in left, and was 1 for 3 with a home run. His first major league season after 9 years in the minor leagues. Field started to go and he stopped, and that got Wilson's attention. 9 years in the minor leagues, Tom, and then became the first player in major league history to have his first 3 hits all be triples.
Wow. I could see where he'd be the only one to ever do that.
He's only the 3rd Brazilian-born player to get to the big leagues, following Yan Gomes, who was born in Brazil but spent a lot of his childhood in Miami, and the pitcher Andre Rienzo. So he's a big hero back home. His first major league home run was at Yankee Stadium. He had a walk-off grand slam last year. That sure makes up a lot of those bus rides.
I wonder if he was a soccer player growing up.
He was a soccer player and a track star. And we learned so much about baseball in Brazil just because Paulo was on the team. But believe it or not, there's a large Japanese population in Brazil, and that's where the kids learn baseball, from Japanese immigrants. Merrifield steals second base. It almost sounds like the setup to a joke. A Brazilian kid who learned baseball from Japanese immigrants. I mean, it's just, but it was the Japanese who brought baseball to Brazil, and that sport is growing, and it sure helps when a native son ends up playing in the World Series.
That's for sure. He's a good-looking athlete.
Right side, and Bernier goes to the hole and throws out Orlando. So Merrifield gets on with 1 out. And it's a potential tying run. He gets to the scoring position, but Ramos closes the door in the 7th inning. San Antonio's Riverwalk. It's a cool day on the Riverwalk today. Temperatures in the 80s yesterday, mid-60s today, and a nice crowd inside the Alamo Dome. Last night's game ended in walk-off fashion with the Rangers winning 7-5, and now Texas has a 5-4 lead to the bottom of the seventh inning stretch. And the Royals have a new pitcher as we begin the bottom of the seventh inning, a right-hander, Kevin McCarthy. 3 stops last year, coming back from Tommy John surgery. Hard thrower, fastball mid-90s, and a slider. Inside to Doug Vernier, who comes to the plate for the first time. Right center field, and Snyder runs it down. Well, in this ballpark, he had the right idea.
Yeah, as soon as the ball goes up in the air to right field, you wonder if it'll go far enough. Hit a little bit toward right center field. It's a little bit longer out that way.
And here's Jordan Danks. Jordan had a chance to play some years in Chicago with his older brother John Danks, and it's easy to forget, Tom, that John Danks came from the Texas Rangers. Think about him exclusively with the White Sox.
Yep. Back then there was, call him DVD. Thomas Diamond, Edison Volquez, and John Danks. 3 good young pitchers. Edison Volquez ended up going to Cincinnati for Josh Hamilton, and very important trade for the Rangers. Continues to be a very solid major league pitcher.
Had a very good year for the Royals last year. Edinson Volquez in his first season.
A pretty emotional game he had in the World Series.
Yeah, what an odd night that was. And if you're wondering what we're referring to, Edinson Volquez lost his father right before Game 1 of the World Series began. He did not know, but most of us knew, not because we were on the inside, but as Danks walks, it had been reported on Twitter. And so, I mean, there were literally thousands of fans in the ballpark who were aware that his father had passed away. Most of his teammates didn't know because they had put all their phones away before the game started. And so we were asked, and I say we, doing the Royals radio broadcast, were asked not to say anything. The broadcasters for Fox Sports, Joe Buck, Tom Verducci, Harold Reynolds, Ken Rosenthal, Aaron Andrews were all asked not to say anything. It was really an interesting discussion on when to release personal information, and the fear was, people would say, well, why couldn't you bring it up on TV or radio when Volquez was on the mound? And the answer was because his teammates didn't know. They might have been in the clubhouse in between innings, and one of them might go up and say, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry about what happened.
That was a very delicate situation.
So the family asked that Edinson would not know. They wanted him to pitch. They knew that his father would want him to pitch in the World Series, so he did. He pitched very well. They told him after the game he went back to the Dominican Republic for his father's funeral and then came back and pitched Game 5 as a starter in Game 5, the game that the Royals won to win the World Series.
Wow.
Jared Hoying is at the plate, but what a great addition, Edinson Volquez, last year. It was a move that many in the industry just kind of shrugged their shoulders, because Volquez essentially had to replace James Shields in the rotation and really matched the same year that Shields had for the Padres. Jared Hoying has put on a show in this series. That is another home run for him. This one to right center last night into the third deck in right. And he turns a one-run game into a three-run game.
Well, there's been some home runs hit here that would normally be outs or maybe extra base hits, not home runs. The home run he hit yesterday was a long home run right down the right field line, went into the upper deck. Would have been a home run anywhere. This one was really hit hard, a line shot to right center field. That's probably a home run almost anywhere. The ballparks are going to keep that in. If they do, it's probably off the middle of the wall in right center field if it's not a home run. But he's put a charge in 2 balls in the last 2 days. We talked about him yesterday. He's a kid that in his mid-20s has hit over 20 home runs in each of his last 2 AAA seasons and stolen 20 or more bases the last 2 years, and plays a very good outfield, very well played defensively. Well, he brings a lot to the table. He runs well, plays good defense, has some power, and he can run.
Ronald Guzman is down to the count 1-2 against Kevin McCarthy. Well, 5 home runs last night, 5 home runs so far today. And that stroke to right field. And
routine single off the wall.
I was going to say the flip side to the shallow right field is not only do you hit a single off the wall, but a single off the wall with no chance to turn it into a double.
He didn't even take a turn. It's a nice line drive to right field. And by the time the right fielder got to the ball, Ronald Guzman was just getting to first base.
Robinson Chirinos has the other Rangers home run today, a 2-run shot in the second inning against Chin-Ming Wong. One and one. This guy's a good story. How many years of professional baseball before getting a chance to be a major league regular? It was over 10, wasn't it?
Yeah, he played a lot in the minor leagues, was an infielder, made the conversion, and done an excellent job for the Rangers. Hasn't hit for a high average, but he's shown some power. Had some big hits for the Rangers, and now doing a solid job behind the plate too. Does a lot for the Rangers and the community off the field too. He and his wife very active in the community. Very, very proud of the charitable endeavors that he and his wife have taken upon themselves in the Metroplex.
Just looking it up in the media guide to be accurate, 2 years ago he played 93 games for the Rangers. That was his 14th professional season. First time he had a chance to be a regular. Talk about hanging in there.
Yeah, hang in there. You're right. And nowadays, you know, maybe 30, 40 years ago it was a little tougher to hang in that long. But now with the minimum salary at $500,000, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you can hang on. Just getting called up in September, you can make $125,000.
Royals turn a double play to help out McCarthy. Jared Hoying hit a big 2-run home run last night, and now a 2-run home run today. And as we head to the 8th inning, the Rangers lead is now 7-4. Hoying has hit 2 home runs in this big league weekend. 2-run home run in the 7th inning last night, and a 2-run home run in the 7th inning today. This is Sam Freeman on the pitch for the Rangers. Royals fans, or at least Royals fans on the Kansas side, remember him as a former KU Jayhawk. He appeared in 54 games last year.
Let me correct my math, Ryan. If you play in September at the minimum salary, you make about $80,000, not $125,000. I only say that because someone will correct that. I just wanted to beat them to the punch.
Does someone have a name?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but there's someone out there that said, what are you talking about? It'd be $125,000 if it was divided over, prorated over 4 months, but actually, big league season is 6 months.
One and 2 on Christian Colon. He is 1 for 3, but he could easily be 3 for 3 today. His 2 outs have been a line out to center and a line out to left. And this is a guy who started spring training 0 for 23 with a lot of hard hit balls mixed in. And caught at third base as Morgan has taken over. Josh Morgan had a great play in the game last night to start a double play at third.
Sam Freeman did a nice job for the Rangers out of the bullpen last year. Kind of grew into his role. He's in the mix, competing for one of the last spots in the bullpen, maybe the last spot in the bullpen. Well, there's 7 or 8 guys in the bullpen. Good arm, mid-90s fastball.
Travis Snyder is 0 for 3. Slash to left field. So you got a hittable pitch down in the count 0-2. Snyder has his first hit.
Center fielder Renzo King.
Well, I guess it's that point in the spring where some of the players are playing deeper into the games than they have early in the spring. The Royals, most of their players, Kane, Hosmer, Perez, they're all-star big league players, still in the ball game. Kane getting his 4th at bat.
One for 3 with a long home run to right field in the 6th inning.
At least he had a sense of humor about it.
Well, if they ever do bring Major League Baseball to San Antonio, and this is a transition stadium, they will have no problem signing hitters. Pulled past third and up the left field line. Snyder on his way to third. He'll hold there. Kane has a double. And the Royals, speaking of starters who have stayed in all game, will have an all-star Eric Hosmer coming up representing the tying run.
Dusty Coleman's going to pinch run at second base for Kane. Well hit ball by Kane right down the line. Good try by Josh Morgan. Couldn't quite knock it down.
Second and third, 1 out. In for a strike. Hosmer And of course, tongue-in-cheek when we're talking about Cain's long home run in the 6th inning. But Hosmer hit a long home run to left field, and you have to hit a long home run to left field here, and that drove in 2 back in the 4th inning.
One of the things that Sam will be looking to improve upon as time goes on is his ability to get left-hand hitters out. That was one of the things that hurt his performance a little bit last year. Lefties had pretty good success against him. So whether it's developing his slider, a little bit better location with his fastball, getting left-hand hitters out will be an important part of his improvement. That's what he's trying to do.
And you got a good left-hand hitter out.
Yep. That's the kind of pitch you can do it with, too. So good job by Sam right there. 2nd and 3rd. Less than 2 outs. He gets the strikeout of one of the more dangerous hitters in the American League with a very well-located slider. Just where he wanted it.
And now he gets a right-hand batter with 2 down. And Salvador Perez, who is homered today. He has Snyder at 3rd, Coleman at 2nd. Off speed and a strike over the outside. Perez's home run was to straightaway center field, back-to-back with Hosmer in the 4th inning. Those balls were hit off of A.J. Griffin. Up the middle. Well, Salvador Perez drives in 2, and we're back to a 1-run game. Snyder and Coleman score, and Perez has driven in 3 today. Having some fun with Jeff Bannister, saying, hey, that's what you get for pitching to me. And Bannister was putting up the 4 fingers, saying, I probably should have walked you with an open base, but not in a spring training game.
Another nice swing. Perez had the home run to dead center field. It just reached out on a pitch out over the plate, stroked it about 400 feet, and ripped that ball up the middle. 2 well-hit balls to center field.
And this is Ramon Torres, who took over defensively last half inning for Clint Barmas. Spent last season at AA Northwest Arkansas. 1-1. Torres, after that season last year, was added to the Royals 40-man roster. Very steady player. And he goes the other way, and that's going to be caught in right field by Danks. But with 2 down, the Royals, who were so good hitting with 2 outs and runners in scoring position last year, they get 2, and now it's a 1-run game. It is a 7-6 Rangers lead after the Royals scored 2 with 2 down in the 8th inning. And now the Royals will bring on their 5th pitcher. It is Luke Farrell, who is the son of Red Sox manager John Farrell. Appeared in 19 games at Double-A with the Royals last year. More of a command pitcher than he would be a power pitcher. And as you would imagine, with his father being a big league manager, former big league pitching coach, big league pitcher, smart. Has a good feel for pitching, good feel for his pitches. We'll get the lower third of the Rangers order in the 8th inning, beginning with Josh Morgan. This is Morgan's first plate appearance. Two and one. Close. 3-1. Full count on Josh Morgan. Jose Trevino is on deck. He'll hit for Bobby Wilson. And a leadoff walk.
Now batting Jose Trevino.
And Trevino, like Morgan, bats for the first time.
Jose has a lot of friends and family here. I heard him tell Jeff Bannister he only left 9 or 10 tickets because he didn't want to press his luck and ask for too many. Probably could have gotten a lot more. He has a lot more friends and family than that here today, he said.
Breaking ball got away from him.
Okay.
And Farrell having a tough time getting the ball down, and now he'll get a visit to the mound.
Gives us a chance to find out who the catcher is now that we can see his back. Parker Moore, it looks like.
Two and two. Morin thought about throwing down to first base. So full counts with Morgan and Trevino. We'll do it again.
Rangers will be heading back to Surprise after the game. We have a Channel 21 game tomorrow and then a Fox game, Fox Sports Southwest, the day after that. How about you, Ryan? You headed back?
We are headed back to Surprise as well, and we have some Fox Sports Kansas City broadcasts coming up. Since you brought it up, we've got one coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Breaking out Rex Hudler.
We're breaking out Rex Hudler. We could only contain him for so long.
He's probably listening today, just chomping at the bit, wishing he was here with you.
Okay, that ball.
Where is it?
Disappeared.
That's so high, it still hasn't come down.
Gigantic speaker and scoreboard, which they will lower during the basketball games, and that ball went up onto the speaker and will be there until the next basketball game. Maybe even longer than that.
Fall down in the middle of a basketball game.
It is directly above first base. So if it had ricocheted off the scoreboard and the speaker, it would have been a live ball.
Don't you know that Rex Hudler right now is getting ready to tell me, Tom, thanks for showing me the love, man.
That's pretty good. I wish I could come back at you with a good Steve Busby impersonation, but I don't have one. Morgan runs.
Another one up there somewhere.
You're right. Back into the crowd. Morgan runs again, and that is ball 4. Heck of a throw by Parker Morin.
I think he had him. If it counted.
So back-to-back walks. And now maybe the hottest hitter in spring training in either Arizona, Florida, or since we're in Texas today, Pedro Siriaco.
If there's a hotter hitter, then that hotter hitter has to be better than 15 for 21. That's what Siriaco has been. Came into the game 12 for his last 18, and he's 3 for 3 in this game.
He is single to right center. He is double to center and single to right. And the Royals will bring the corners in just in case Siriaco lays one down. But boy, you want this guy to be swinging the bat right now.
Yeah, the game situation probably dictates the sacrifice bunt, but the cynical broadcaster would say, how can you make this guy bunt? He's 15 for 21. But one of the things he might have to do in his role as a utility player is get down a sacrifice bunt.
Back to the mound. Farrell throws high, and a good play there with Coleman coming over and reaching high on a tough throw from Farrell. So the sacrifice is down. Morgan goes to third, and Trevino moves up to second base.
Siriaco again doing everything he possibly can to impress the Rangers and give himself an opportunity to make the ball club. At the sacrifice bunt down, so he's done the little things. He's had the hits. He's been versatile. He's played virtually everywhere on the field and seems to make the plays wherever you put him. So he can't do anything more than he's done. And it's just a matter of the makeup of the team and how the extra men figure into the overall plan as to whether he does make the team. But he's given himself every opportunity to make the team, depending on exactly what the Rangers are looking for.
Center field. And Fuentes at the track. He's looking up. And now it's Drew Stubbs taking advantage of the dimensions. A 3-run home run. It is the third Rangers home run today. And right after the Royals scored a pair of runs in the top of the 8th inning to make it a 1-run game. Bruce Stubbs makes it a 4-run Rangers lead.
Well, Drew has always had that combination of speed and power. Contact occasionally has been a problem, but the tools have always been there, and power has been one of them. He does what you want to do in this ballpark: get the ball up in the air and go the other way with it.
Pretty good swing there by Bernier. Two. So talking about that speed and that power combination for Stubbs. In the same game, he has stolen home on a double steal and hit a 3-run home run. Back up the middle, Torres scoops, throws high, and it's over Fuen Minor. And Bernier is on with 1 out.
Perfect look at that ball kind of taking off on him, sailing up and away to first base. Royals haven't been quite as good defensively today as they were yesterday. That's the 4th error.
And now Jordan Danks, and he'll ground it to the right side. Coleman throws high to Torres, and so that could have been a double play.
Well, rule him off the bag.
Yep.
Didn't come back down on the bag at second base.
So instead of 2, the Royals get 0.
There's a good look at it. Came down in time, but as he jumped and came down, he didn't come down on the bag, and there's the umpire right on top of the plate at second base.
So just as you mentioned, the Royals have 4 errors today, now make it 5. It's been a long inning for Luke Farrell. He walked the first 2, and then Siriaco dropped down the sacrifice bunt. Stubbs hits the 3-run home run, and now back-to-back errors. And now he has to face a guy who's homered in each of these 2 games.
He's had some good at-bats in this series. Good approach at the plate. Looks like he's locked in and right on it.
Off speed, that's hit well to center field. Fuentes is there. Tagging and holding is Bernier at second base. And Farrell has the 2nd out of the inning. It'll be good to see his father back in the dugout with the Boston Red Sox after his cancer scare and leaving the team in the middle of August. Had to miss the rest of the season. Diagnosed with stage 1 lymphoma. And now Ronald Guzman. Breaking ball is high. Guzman with the short dimensions in right field singled off the wall last inning. Big rip. 1 ball, 1 strike. And now 1-2. I don't know much about Ronald Guzman being from the Rangers organization, but my quick scouting report on him is he does not get cheated.
Well, he was not drafted. He was signed as a free agent out of the Dominican Republic the same time as Nomar Mazara. Mazara got a signing bonus somewhere in the vicinity of $5 million. Ronald Guzman's was somewhere in the vicinity of a little under $4 million. Guzman was not on the big league roster, but the Rangers still think he has a chance to develop into an excellent hitter with power.
And there is some of that power. Straightaway center field. Fuentes. He was there, but the ball is over his glove. And that's going to drive in 2 more. And now Guzman's into third base with a triple. So it's a 5-run bottom of the 8th inning. And the Rangers now have a 6-run lead.
It's a fastball kind of right in his zone. Third big swing of that at bat, and gets it right. Now, if it went off the end of Fuentes' glove, looked like he had a long way to go for it, but that he might have gotten there to make the catch, just wasn't able to make the ball go in the glove.
That was a great shot right there from center field to see the fade on that ball. How it was just working away from Fuentes.
Yeah.
So a rough day for Luke Farrell. He faces 8. Gave up a couple of walks and a home run. The defense also let him down with a couple of errors. And the 9th man is coming up for the Rangers. Royals make a pitching change. And we'll tell you all about that when we come back. It is Malcolm Culver out of the Royals bullpen. Double-A closer for Northwest Arkansas. He's trying to close out this long bottom of the 8th inning. And there's a base hit to right field. So it'll be a 6-run bottom of the 8th inning. Pat Cantwell coming off the bench, and the very first pitch he sees, he doubles in Guzman, who just tripled in 2 runs. And now the Rangers lead is 7.
This inning has officially become a challenge to my ability to keep score.
And identify players.
Yeah, glad you're on top of it, right?
And all this started with a walk. A leadoff walk in the late innings of a close ball game. Our Hall of Fame radio voice, Denny Matthews, whom you know well.
Sure.
Denny, if I've heard him say it once, I've heard him say it a million times. Leadoff walk, close innings, tight ball game. Bites you every time.
Bad idea.
So we didn't know that the Rangers are going to have an inning like this. But we can point out that this 6-run inning began with a leadoff walk in a 1-run game. And it was Josh Morgan who walked. Jose Trevino then walked. Pedro Siriaco dropped down a sac bunt. And then that's when it got ugly. A 3-run home run for Stubbs. Errors on back-to-back plays. Inside to Morgan. Error by the shortstop Torres on a ground ball from Bernier. A throwing error by the second baseman Coleman on a ground ball by Danks. Then the second out. And then Guzman hit the 2-run triple. Cantwell hits the RBI double, and now the 10th man to bat in the inning. One hop out to Coleman, and that is the inning. 10 bat, 6 score, and we go to the 9th, and the Rangers lead 13-6. Rangers have scored 8 runs over the last 2 innings. They just scored 6 runs on 3 hits in the bottom of the 8th to pull away. And Tom Wilhelmsen will get the top of the 9th inning.
Yeah, Wilhelmsen, a very nice addition to the Ranger bullpen. Another mid-90s guy, been a closer at times with Seattle, added to an already strong Ranger bullpen. Like so many bullpens in the big leagues today, there's a number of guys out there. Your bullpen is certainly one of them, Ryan, that has a number of guys coming in throwing anywhere from 94 to 100 miles an hour, I guess. Wilhelmsen's right in the mid-90s. Good pitches to go along with it, too. Good hard curveball. So on any given day, the Rangers can run 3 or 4 different guys out there that could easily save a game. Sean Tollison was the excellent closer last year and will be this year as well, but there's other guys with great arms too.
Well, for years and years and years, teams had a closer, and then it was like, you know, we can use someone in a regular role to set up the closer.
Yeah.
So then of course we had the setup man, and then it's evolved into the setup to the setup man, and now simply they're just innings guy. He's our 8th inning guy, he's our 7th inning guy. Strike 3. Merrifield is down on 3 pitches.
There's that good curveball that he's got.
So you get the setup man to the setup man, and now we've got the setup man to the setup man to the setup man.
Yeah, for the Rangers, it's probably Sean Tollison is the closer. A number of guys could be that 8th inning guy, I guess, depending on the matchups, depending on who's available, whether it's Dyson, Kella, Wilhelmsen, Diekman. Tony Barnett saved 40 games in Japan, and so he's got the kind of arm that he could come in and be a late inning guy. So I guess it's up to Jeff Bannister to kind of mix and match and establish those roles on any given night, and he's got a lot of guys to choose from on any given night, again depending on who's available. But that's why it's so important for the Rangers to round out their bullpen with someone who can definitely be a long man or pitch multiple innings. And of those 6 guys we just talked about, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 of them called on to pitch more than an inning on occasion. Extra inning game. Game that's out of hand, a blowout. Game when some of the guys might not be available based on their workload.
A little bit outside to Fuentes. I was raised by old school baseball people, so I think I hung on longer than a lot of people did to, well, starters should be going 7 or 8 innings. But they're really not conditioned to do that in the minor leagues. You really can't blame the pitchers. I mean, it's so easy to place the blame on them. Bernier is going to take care of Fuentes. And now really when you look at it, if you get the rare opportunity to face a starter for a 3rd or maybe a 4th time, if they're going to go deep into the game, and you think, okay, I got a good feel for what he has. I mean, those days are over now. Right when you get a feel for a guy, you got a guy coming out of the bullpen throwing 98, and when you figure him out, he gets replaced by a guy who's throwing 97.
Yeah, people often say, I want to get the starter out of the game. That's the other side of that is you get them out of the game and you face the guys you're talking about. That's no fun either. You may face a starter when he's beginning to lose it, but it's not the 8th inning for your 4th at bat, that's for sure.
When you get a starter out of the game earlier in the game, you're facing a guy who wasn't good enough to make the starting rotation. It used to be that way. Now you're facing a guy who has 2 really good pitches and didn't make it in the rotation because he couldn't come up with a 3rd pitch, but now he only has to throw those 2 really good pitches. And how many careers have been saved by moving to the bullpen? And that used to be a place where you didn't want to go because you'd be labeled a reliever.
Well, look at you got a perfect example, and that's Wade Davis, who was, I guess you'd call him a successful starter, but not a dominating starter. And now people regard him as the best, one of the best, certainly, closers in baseball.
He's the best.
Yeah, he's certainly in the conversation.
Luke Hochevar, another example.
Yeah.
His career turned around when he went to the bullpen in a big way. Down on strikes, and that ends the ball game. So more drama last night as the Rangers won in walk-off fashion. They did their damage today in the last 2 innings, scoring a total of 8 runs on 5 hits. And the Rangers pull away from the Royals. They sweep this little 2-game series, winning today 13-6. We'll be right back.